And just making sure I know where you guys are at. You guys have attempted a few tests. Is that right?
Yes.
How are those going?
Not bad. I mean, for me, I think we talked about this. The run was just not enough distance.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it didn't register.
Yep.
But other than that, I in particular wanted to kind of go over one of the assessments. So you can show us how like systematically you go over that with people. But Noah, what do you feel?
Just clarifying, yeah, that last with the running, because I think Caitlin sent you a message and said you had to do it 3 times before you start and stop again, and so I was misunderstanding there. So I just wanted to clarify that last test, but the rest of them should be good.
Okay. So we actually sent, and I want to double check on this on your system. We've been noticing from a lot of customers that we're not getting enough steps in, like just like that, that first rep. And a lot of the times, like it's inappropriate for like an offensive lineman to be running 30 yards. Like they're not going to do that in a game, right? So what we've done is we've adjusted the directions and how we do that assessment back to actually our old way of doing it on our like legacy product, on our movement suite product. Okay. So before we get into the report interpretation, will you open up your application and just pretend like you're setting up a person and get to the acceleration deceleration test? And I just want to make sure that you guys have the most updated version.
You.
And this is Valencia, right?
Correct.
Okay. We'll pull up on the portal too, some results.
Okay.
And you might have to, do you have the sensors? You'll probably have to take them out, turn them on, just like pretend, go through that whole thing. And after this, I'll send you guys I created a tips and tricks document, like just for like some of the normal, like sensors disconnecting, how do I reconnect them, all that good stuff.
Awesome.
I'll send that over.
Okay. So I signed into my account just now for the first time.
Oh, it worked.
Yeah.
Cool.
Noah, did you get yours? I think weren't you having, okay.
Yeah, I was able to log in. I'll try again before we log off just to make sure I'm good.
So use last, right?
And just remember when you sign in, you have to be connected to Wi-Fi. So.
Okay, do you want us to actually attach them?
You don't have to, just like press yes, yes, yes all the way through. I just want to double check the directions on your guys' acceleration, deceleration. Make sure you have the most updated version.
Okay, and calibrate?
Yeah, we're just gonna go through it all.
Yeah, just go through all that.
See what kind of angle we get. 2.2.
Perfect.
Okay, so should just go back to the.
Go to like are you guys in the assessment?
Yeah, so I just clicked on the Excel decel.
Perfect. What do the directions say there?
Instruct the runner to begin from a stop, accelerate as fast as possible, then decelerate to a stop without getting to a cruising speed. Perform 3 reps. If outside, make sure the runner stays within 30 feet, 10 yards, of the iPad to maintain connection to the sensor. Have the athlete begin 5 yards to one side of the tester, then sprint past the tester 5 yards the other way and stop. If running outside, distance from the iPad can be up to 100 feet.
Okay, so you don't have the most updated version. Can you go into your guys' iPad settings?
Yeah.
And you're going to go, once you get into settings, you're going to go into apps, I believe, or App Store. I'm going off memory here.
Yep.
And then once you're in that, do you have it selected where it's toggled on for like automatic app updates? You do? Okay.
But I don't know what the security anything is like the issue with being in like a large organization.
Yeah. So that may be the issue. So what we've done is we've changed the directions on the acceleration, deceleration. So I'll explain it to you guys now. I'm pulling it up on my iPad end, make sure that it's actually gone through on the AMI side. It's gone through on the running side for sure.
Okay.
But basically what you're going to do is on the new version, you're going to have one capture window essentially. So one rep, but you're going to do 3 sprints in 1 rep.
Mm.
So you're going to press start. You'll tell the person to sprint, come to a complete stop, stay there for 1 second, turn around, walk back to their starting position. And then they're going to repeat those sprints 2 more times. So once they walk back, they sprint, stop, walk back, sprint, stop, walk back. After their 3rd sprint, you press stop.
Got it.
Okay. So what that's doing is the algorithm is being picked up on the sprint, but not the walking. So then what it's going to do, it's going to average your acceleration, deceleration over those 3 sprints. And you'll get ground reaction force, IPA, ASI, contact time of those 3 as an average.
Got it.
Okay. And so I'm going to double check in my system. I have like every single assessment on here. So it's just taking a little bit to load. But I'll double check and make sure the AMI directions are on there. And if you guys don't have that accessible, then we'll probably have to reach out to your security team and see if they could just like push through an update on the app.
Mhm.
Or you guys might just have to kill the app and bring it back up.
Oh, I wonder if we should do that right now.
Well, I think
Let's
in order to download it, we have to go through security.
But
set
if you
up
just
the
like
You
different-
just
swipe
kill
up
it off
the app,
this.
like
Oh.
kill it and then bring it back up. Now, if we have to get security involved where they uninstall and reinstall the app, you guys will want to make sure you upload all of those videos off of the iPad into the portal, whatever you want to keep, and make sure all those reports are synced.
Uh-huh.
Because if you uninstall, then it's going to delete everything locally.
Got it. But if they're synced and it stays synced, how do we upload them? Or are they, once they're synced, it's okay?
So once the reports are synced, that's fine. It goes back to the portal. So you'll see it on the portal. And you guys all have access on the portal. It's like that, literally that invite. And I'll drop the portal website in the chat right now. But the only thing that doesn't automatically sync when you press sync are the videos. So you have to individually go through and which videos you want to keep.
Got it.
So I just dropped the portal in there. Yeah, so if you just want to open up that app again, go through and let's see if killing the app helped.
I'm gonna message you the link.
I think last time when I looked, it was updated.
Yeah, I think it's the same instructions. So we'll probably have to reach out to the security
Okay.
team.
And let me just double check on our end before I give you guys that task to do, because I can appreciate talking to security and IT sometimes isn't super fun all the time.
Yeah, I'll probably just ask Marina to do it.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll double check that once this is loaded. Have I sent you guys the report interpretation, like just video that I've done? Okay, maybe I've sent it to Marina.
I don't think so.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send it to you guys after this. But is there a specific report you want to go through?
Yeah.
Can I clarify one thing about the acceleration, deceleration? So
Yep.
then they're gonna do 3 reps. That includes 3 within each 1 rep. So they'll do 9 total sprints.
So on the new version, it'll be 1 rep of 3 sprints.
Mhm.
If we
Yeah.
can't get this adjusted, then it'll be a total of 9 sprints for 3 reps.
Yeah, that was what I was doing wrong. Because I was having them just run the 30 and then I was stopping it. Were you doing
Yeah.
that?
That's what I was doing with this.
Yeah, me too.
And
But
based
we're
off
supposed to
those
have them do
instructions-
Yeah.
Based off those instructions, you were doing it correctly. we were just now noticing that, like, when we test it in a facility and we have that range, right? Like, not every clinic has that, so we want to make it compatible for every clinic. So it's not anything you were doing wrong. It was just like we were just learning
Yeah.
from
So,
our end.
so until this gets updated, though, we're gonna have them do
9 sprints.
30, or I'm sorry, 9. Okay. And so they would,
Better be ready to go.
right? They would start sprint 30 and then sprint 30 back, or they would walk.
They don't even have to go 30. They could go 10 yards
Okay,
on this one.
but 9 times.
In each.
So we wouldn't press stop until after the 3rd each time. But are they walking back again, or are they just sprint, sprint, sprint?
After, so walk back.
Okay,
Mhm.
it'll still pick it up. Okay.
Yeah, it won't pick up the walking, but it'll pick up the sprints. But we need like a total number of time and then also steps
Got it.
is the sprints.
Do you want to go over Elijah's?
Yeah, let's do that because I'm gonna be testing him.
We have a patient that we'd like to go over his report, if
Do you
that's
want to
okay.
send me the report?
Yeah.
And I'll put my email in this chat.
Just so you know, I told him I wanted above 65,
Okay. And you said I'm testing him next week.
and not next week, but the week after. Stewart. Oh no,
Those emojis.
I know. That come?
Hmm.
That was great.
Yes.
And are you good? You know how to send and all that good stuff?
Yeah.
Awesome. How have your guys' like connections on your sensors been going lately? I know that was an issue at the beginning.
It was fun when I did it.
I haven't had any issues. I mean, we had an issue with the sensors coming off for
Yeah.
me, but other
I
than
just
that,
put the sleeve on.
Oh, they fell off. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
yeah, like doing the acceleration, deceleration,
Yeah.
like towards the end. But
Yeah.
I have any other issues. Other than
Yeah,
that.
honestly, like when I was doing all of these assessments, I just pre-wrapped them on.
Do we have pre?
Yeah. Or like
We have those
Sylvain-
sleeves too, right?
What'd you say?
The sleeves.
Yeah, you have the sleeves too. Those work.
Yeah.
Some people like them, some people don't. Totally up to you.
You had him do the sleeves.
I did for
Okay.
he started to get sweaty. That was the issue.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sweaty high school boys,
I understand.
So it's sent. So let us know when you get it.
Okay, I'll pull it up on my end when I get
It's
it fixed.
Too complicated for me.
Oh,
trying to stand it up.
I think it has to stand. It has to be down here.
Oh, like this?
And then, like, you're trying to bring it up here, keep it down this way.
I
I'm
know.
gonna share my screen.
Okay. Oh, that would be way more helpful.
Are you able to see my screen here?
Yep.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll send you that tips and tricks video. It has report interpretation on it too, but I'll also send this video for you guys.
Okay.
Report interpretation is the hardest part to understand and then also the hardest part to relay. But once you guys like, I would just say like get used to being uncomfortable relaying this information because the more uncomfortable you are, the better off you're going to be. You'll get your spiel. Okay. You'll get how to interpret it. Do you want to give me a little background on this patient?
Yeah, so 16-year-old boy, he plays center mid in high school soccer. He's just started playing club now, actually. He, a few months ago, had a 3 ligament sprain in his left leg. He doesn't have too much pain, but he's really, really, really unsteady on both legs. So basically, over the last few months, we've been really working on one, power generation, but also dynamic stability to allow him to get back to soccer.
Okay. So you said center mid?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll explain this to you a little bit like how I'd explain it to an athlete. Okay.
Mhm.
So when we're looking at movement score here, so each rep is scored, right? So it's always going to be scored. If we're doing a complete AMI, it's going to be total of 504 points. If you do the acceleration deceleration piece, that does not go into the overall report. So just a heads up.
Okay,
Okay.
that's good because I think it didn't register on this
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter to, so like what you can do if that happens and you're like, oh shoot, you can redo that test like on this assessment, or you can save this one. And the next time he comes in, you can do just the acceleration deceleration because it doesn't go into the overall report. Okay. So he scored a 275 out of 504 points. So giving him a 55%. Now, the thing with the movement score is 100% is perfect movement. That's unlikely to ever happen, right? So, like, what I usually would say is the highest score that I've ever seen on this assessment is a 92%. The second highest is an 85%. Okay. So, someone doing a 55% on their very first test, I'm going to kind of take that with a grain of salt at this point
Mhm.
because the goal of the movement score is I want to see you progress towards the green. Every time you come in, I just want to see you get better. Okay. Some customers like to look at the overall, like they like to look at the scores. I'm very different in the fact that I like to look at the metrics. I dive deeper into the metrics to like make my return to play call. Is this a return to play assessment or is it just like checking in to see where he's at?
I mean, he's already playing, but that was off his own accord. I've
Yeah.
told him, like, if he doesn't fix these things, he's gonna get hurt again. So it's less so, I guess, more like to show him that he has a lot to work on.
Okay. So that's also a great way to understand like what's our end goal for this patient? Is it to humble them? Is it to make them understand like what do we need to really work on from a mechanic standpoint and how that like it goes into their performance? But also something to make note of is like you don't have to show them this overall page, right? Like I had plenty of kids where I knew what was going on at their home life and it wasn't great. They were having a hard time with therapy. If they saw that 55%, I knew I lost them, right? And they never want to do this test again. So just remember, like, you're in the driver's seat, like gaining that rapport with that patient. And also, it's a 16-year-old, so it's a minor. So bring that parent back for like interpretation. Okay.
Mhm.
So just remember, like, you are 100% in the driver's seat. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that they are doing their very best, but you guys are a team. So like if I'm needing to kind of humble this kid a little bit, I definitely show them, hey, you're scoring a 55%. Now it's the first time that you're ever doing this assessment. So we're going to kind of take that overall score with a grain of salt. Every time you come in and do this assessment, we're going to progress towards a green. That's my goal for you. We're going to dive into the metrics to have a better understanding of why you're scoring at 55% and where we need to work on this. That makes sense?
Yeah. It was actually really funny. He asked me, he's like, is this test to determine if I still need PT? Because I don't think he wants to come, but I think he knows he needs to.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good point. Like every athlete that comes in and they're injured, they're walking into the doors thinking, I'm injured, right? And that's why I love this assessment because we can utilize the objective numbers to talk performance,
Mhm.
right? How I get you better as an athlete. Woof. Limb symmetry index.
This is actually a question I had. Since I didn't get to run through the test because we were having like technical difficulties, he didn't technically lose his balance, but he didn't have to put his foot down. And so I didn't mark when he did like a reactive, he does that turn.
Yeah.
He didn't technically lose his balance, like to where he had to like put his foot down. So I didn't mark it. But is that something like if he looks unbalanced, I should check loss of balance?
No, so like if we're looking at loss of balance here, it says someone clicked loss of balance 2 times on the left, 2 times on the
Yes.
right.
And that's
So
when he had to
just,
put his foot down.
yes.
And that's the only time I clicked loss of balance.
That's the only time you're going to click loss of balance. That's our
Okay.
only way to objectively measure that. If they touch their foot down or if they grab onto something.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because he
But if
does
they're-
this like weird thing where like he like rotates his whole body, and I don't know how he doesn't lose his balance, but like obviously it's still an issue. And so
Yeah.
I wish there was like a almost lost balance, like you know.
Well, oops, sorry. That'll get picked up in the pelvic control, most likely.
And we'll probably see.
Yeah, so we'll probably see that. But like his limb symmetry is super interesting. So, and I just like quickly scrolled through the limb symmetry. I'm really curious to see what's going on that right side is looks worse than
Yes.
the left side.
And the left side, the single limbed hop, he couldn't do it. So that's the one you told me just to move the sensor. So I'm sure it's better than it was, but still like the squat and everything was better than the right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did, I understand. So you're saying that he was having pain or couldn't accomplish that assessment. So we just moved the sensor. So some of these numbers are going to be a little bit skewed on this.
Yeah.
So then what we're really going to have to do is dive into the metrics for sure on that.
Yeah.
So which side did you do that on? Single leg hop on which side?
The left.
On the left. Okay. So let's just make a mental note on that. Yeah, so you helped him with that one.
I know.
68% here. Typically, clinician surgeons for like return to play like to see 90%. But since he's having pain on the left side, which is also something to make note of, if you're having pain and you're doing single leg hopping, that's running, right? You're hopping from one leg to the next leg. We probably should do more PT before you go back into play. So that is where like, and it's your guys' patient, but that's where I would definitely bring the parent back and be like, he couldn't even accomplish this test.
Yeah.
AMI rating, so 42% here. So his movement score goes into the AMI rating. Okay, so that's where we start off with. What drops the AMI rating is going to be his main sport. That's a high risk sport. So that goes into the AMI rating. He's had an injury in the last year. Okay. Those two things will drop his AMI rating. Okay. If you're a female, that will also go into it. And if you've had a concussion, that will also go into it. Okay. Now on our new version of the assessment, there's going to be a way to take this AMI rating off if you guys don't want it. So when you're filling out the demographics, like it's a long process to fill out that demographics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people like it. They like that injury history. Some people are like, I just want to do the assessment, get in and get out. So on my update, and I think I sent it to Marina, I'll send it to you guys too. But once you have the new app updated, you're going to have an option of going through the subject information. And once you hit reason for test, if you choose mass testing, I think it's mass testing, it's going to be a very shortened version of the demographics. It's not going to have the ACL history or any of that, so you won't see the AMI rating. Okay, if they're in rehab, it will have all of that information. So it's totally up to you guys how you want to play that. Okay, any questions on the front page? Are we good?
Good.
Awesome. Okay, so the limb symmetry index. So we're going to take his left side kind of with a grain of salt here, right? Because you moved the sensors. So with that, did you move the sensors for the single leg hop to plant, or did he accomplish that?
Sorry. So I moved the sensor for the single limb hop to plant, but not the single limb hop.
Okay.
So the only thing that's skewed is the 39 out of 48.
Just so funny because that's like the highest one when he's in single.
I know, because I was literally just going with it.
You're giving him help. That's okay.
I
So
know.
we'll dive into those metrics. And then also on our new version, if you start an exercise, so like for instance, like single leg hop to plant, if you start this rep and you don't finish it, you'll still be able to save the entire report, but it won't pop up with this metric. Does that make sense? Like the current version that you have, if you start a rep and you don't finish it, it's not going to save the report at all, but we changed that in our next version. Okay. So we'll just make sure that keep playing it like how you're playing it. And so we can make sure that you have the update. So if I'm looking at this, like just at a quick glance, the purpose of this is for you guys to figure out like, where do I need to spend my time? right? Like you guys are busy, you have 5 to 10 minutes to talk with the patient, maybe 15 minutes. So where do I need to spend my time? So on the left side, these are all the single leg exercises with their score plus the side plank, and then the same thing with the right side. So red, they need work, amber is moderate, green is good. So if I'm looking at this, I'm like, what happened on the right side?
Yeah.
Right? That's where I need to focus my attention. And that happens a ton. We don't get this leg, right, from like ground zero from an injured perspective. We're having to overcome a ton of mechanics. So that's very, very common for the unimpacted leg to score worse because you've been focusing on this side so much. Okay.
Hey, we do
Now-
both sides though.
We do.
Yeah, I think.
And so then it could also be like understanding from a skill perspective. Like, does he typically plant with his left side and pass with his right? Like,
it with his left, yeah.
yeah. So you can relate it back to that, or it's just like one leg is worse than the other leg. Maybe that's why this leg got injured because it was fatigued, right?
Mhm.
So if I'm looking at this side planks, something funky is going on in his glute med. Like that's what I'm testing here, right? He scored a
And that checks
27.
out with his testing too. The right butt is way weaker than the left.
Yeah, I'm really curious about his pelvic data, and especially if he's like doing that weird rotation. I'd also take a look at this and be like, okay, something's happening when we get into a single limb here, right? But if I'm again trying to make the athlete understand that they need to continue with therapy and then maybe they're returning back to sport a little too early, like, hey, look what's going on your unaffected leg. We're scoring in the red here. We need to get this better for your mechanics, and then that's going to translate into your performance as well. Okay, so he's scoring a 69 overall, 69%. This contributes to a 69%, but like everything else is not great either. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, this page is here for you to focus on where do I need to focus my attention. Very curious about this, his plank. So we're seeing a lot of red. Okay, so let's kind of dive into this. We'll go through the planks first. So how we score the planks is you put them in that perfect position. So feet together on their forearms, back nice and flat, right? The moment that they deviate outside of 8 degrees for longer than 2 seconds, it will knock them a point. If they deviate outside of 8 degrees for less than 2 seconds and recorrect back into that starting position, it will not knock them a point. Okay. So does that make sense first and foremost? Okay.
Mhm.
So what happened probably, you put him in that correct position and he deviated right away and never recorrected. Okay.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
when
he
we're
was
looking at,
struggling.
what'd you say?
He was struggling.
He was struggling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he deviated outside of the 8 degrees in the sagittal plane. Max deviation was 22 degrees. And that's where the video and like what you're going to know is like, did he go into extension or flexion
Yeah.
there? Extension. Yeah. So another build we're going to look at putting like a way to decipher if it's extension or flexion here. But regardless, he's going into extension at 22 degrees. So now he's starting to use his back during his sport, right? The main reason why we're assessing the core is that's your main powerhouse to make you run faster, jump higher, right? And
Mhm.
especially to your point, when he's rotating, he's not using his core to help stabilize himself.
Mhm.
So kids are always going to ask, like, I'm rehabbing my knee. Why do I need to focus on my core? If you don't have your core, you don't have anything else,
Mhm.
right? So that's going to contribute to stability. It's going to contribute to performance, speed, vertical, power, etc. Any questions on this at all? Okay. Okay, the lumbar flexion extension. So we pick up flexion in 3 different ways. We pick up flexion if they're squatting too deep. So squatting past 90 degrees. If you see them squatting past parallel, cue them out of that. It's just like our way to standardize the test. Now, if you have like a power lifter and you want to see that, like them diving deep, that's fine. Just know that they're going to have more flexion. The other way is if they're actually falling forward, so their chest is going over top of their hips. So if they're breaking in half, okay. And then the other way is if they have a pelvic wink, so their pelvis dips underneath. Okay. So this is all based off of their normal lordotic curve. So standing straight, they start an extension. As they go into a squat, they're obviously going to go into flexion. Okay, so all these numbers should be flexion. We want them to all be less than 30. So if I'm looking at like rep 2, rep 3, probably went past parallel on those, is what I'm assuming happened. But then like some of them, he does really well. He maintains a flat back. Some of them he's flexing too far forward. Okay, so understanding like from the video and what you're seeing with the objective data, was it he was flexing too far forward? Was it parallel, or was it that pelvic wink? Okay, so he's going to lose points on all of the ones where he's greater than 30 degrees. Now, lumbar lateral shift. All positive numbers mean he's shifting over to his right side. All negative numbers means he's shifting over to his left side. He's shifting over to the right. His impacted leg is which one?
The left, yeah.
So it totally makes sense. He's avoiding utilizing his left leg. He's shifting over to the right. We want it less than 7 degrees. Some of these are pretty high. So I wonder if the sensor got clipped by his shorts would be the only thing. Okay. But like looking at like 14 degrees, that's not absurd. 16, 11. So you can kind of take these numbers and make sense of these. That's where he's losing points. Questions on this, or you feel good?
Good. Is that the same thing, sorry, for the front plank, for the rotation?
Yeah.
If it's a positive number, does that mean he's rotating to the right?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. That one's always kind of tricky. It should be positive going to the right side. Negative should be going to the left side. I would just watch the video to see which way he rotates.
Got it.
Okay, so he's scoring 17 out of 30. He drops into that lateral flexion, so losing his glute med. Looks like it was probably somewhat early. He rotates, or he goes into lateral flexion of 10 degrees. It's not super far outside of that 8, but he has a hard time maintaining that rotation. So from your point of, okay, plant leg, he's probably not planning on his right side all the time, but being in a center mid, you have to transition quickly on both, and you have to be able to swivel your hips. So loading and planning, or planning and accelerating, that's something that I would talk to for him for sure about. Like if you don't have your glutes to stabilize you, your body swaying from one side, you're not as quick to return back or react.
Yeah, because he does have like a lot of trunk movement. Yeah.
And like if I were to really want to capture his attention, that's wasted energy. If you took that stuff out when you're playing, you're going to be so much quicker and so much more reactive. This side plank he does pretty well on. I wouldn't focus like a ton on unless you needed to build him up a little bit.
Yeah, he does do way better on his side planks on the left than the right.
What do you think if he has a weak right glute, it
Exactly.
drops him into
Exactly. It's just interesting to see because these are basically like confirming all of the things that we see like before we've even done this.
Love to hear that. Like, and that's what we want to make sure. But now you have like all of the numbers, to what degree, how it impacts them, and then showing them. And then also thinking like from the side plank perspective, if you're planning on your left side and you're passing with your right, you're typically going to use obviously your left glute med, but also your left oblique to rotate you that direction too. So in center mid, you should be utilizing both, but naturally if he's a righty, then it's going to be a little bit more appropriate for that side to be a little bit stronger. So I love using this for baseball players too. Same thing with rotation on their throw, and volleyball players.
Yeah.
I think Eric did it with a baseball player.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Got it.
Even if they had shoulder or elbow injury, I tested them on this because I'm like, I want to see what we're working on from your base perspective. Okay, single leg squat on the right side. Okay. Let's actually go. Yeah, we'll focus on this, and then I want to look at the single leg hop on the left side. Then we'll focus on the left. Okay, so here are your target values. Blue is where our best practice recommendations are. If you're like, okay, there's a lot of metrics here, like where do I need to focus my attention? The color. Okay, focus on the color here. I like to look at tibial inclination first. Okay, so he's scoring a 27 out of 60 for his limb quality. We're going to cruise over here. That's high Q angle, large amount of valgus, right? If he's scoring in the green, it's going to be straight up and straight down. Okay, this is just an image to help your patients understand like what they're looking like. On this information, I focus heavily to start on the tibial inclination. Now, from a scoring perspective, the main things to focus on if you're wanting to increase the score, if that's important to you, would be speed and valgus. Okay. I like to look at tibial inclination first to make sure that you're actually hitting the depth that I need you to hit in, right? So single leg squat, we're looking at that tibial inclination, so that tibia translating over top of his ankle. Are you getting into the depth that we want you to? Yes, absolutely. You're allowing your knee to translate forward. Okay, so you're scoring 33. We want you to be at 31. Great. The next thing I look at is valgus. Negative is valgus, positive is varus. He does not go into varus ever. It's constant valgus. So if I'm looking at these numbers, you're going into valgus every single time, right?
That first.
Yeah, that first one. Woof. Maybe you need a little warm up. But he did get better, so we'll give him that credit. But his average is 10.25, so it's outside of that 8 degrees. So every time your knee is every time you're going into that single leg, your knee is buckling in, right? If I'm looking at pelvic lateral tilt, this number will always be positive. Okay, so that's something to make note of. This will always be positive. It's an absolute number of the pelvic lateral tilt. Main thing to take away is he's outside of this range that we want him to be in. So what you have to do is you have to look at the trend of, is it negative or is it positive? Okay. Negative means hips to the left. Positive means hips to the right. Or if you're thinking about left hip drops, right hip drops. So I have to look at what's my trend and what leg am I standing on. Negative will always be to the left. Positive will always be to the right. Okay.
So he's on his right side right now. So if it's negative, he's got left hip drop. Okay.
So if I'm looking at this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he goes about half of the time his left hip drops, half the time his right hip drops.
Shrunk. Yeah.
Yes, moving all over the place. Now let's just pretend he has 8 reps where he's in negative. Okay. I'm standing on my right leg. My hips are going to the left or left hip dropping every single time. I'm going into Trendelenburg. I'm losing that right glute med every single time, right? Does that make sense first and foremost? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm on my right side and I see 8 reps where it's all positive, I'm going into retro Trendelenburg. Okay. Yep, side bending into that side. I'm using my QL. I'm really not utilizing that glute or that core. Okay, or rotating over top. But to your point, he's like all over the freaking place. And that makes sense from the plank that we saw. And then also his valgus motion. And now we're seeing it with the pelvis. Okay. Speed, we want this low. Athletes never understand that piece of it. We want this as low as possible. Speed is how fast they're moving in the frontal plane, how fast their knee is going side to side. So I think of speed as control and stability. Okay. So a high magnitude of valgus at a large amount of speed is going to create a lot of force inside that joint, right? So this to me would be a red flag. So every time you're moving side to side, you're putting stress on that joint, stress on that ligament, and now you're really moving into that valgus motion. You're putting a ton of stress on the inside of your knee. So whatever happened on your left side with all of those sprains, I don't want that to happen on your right side now. Okay. And definitely making that very aware for the parents to see as well, because they don't want to spend time they don't want to spend any more money on rehab, right? Any questions on this at all?
No, this totally makes sense. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, let's cruise down to his left side of his single leg hop. I'm curious about this one. This is an interesting number here. Negative 81.
He's not getting low enough.
That should be
But I've
positive.
never seen a negative on that.
Should be positive. That's so
Maybe it
weird.
was, maybe I put it upside down on accident.
Oh, wouldn't we see the sensors all different then, if that was the case?
Could see, yeah, I think you did. See the zeros? We're not picking up any movement.
Oops.
You have to pull up it's okay, it happens.
That could be why this is better though, doesn't it?
All the numbers are funky. Yeah, his tibial inclination's really off.
You know what? Eric did this. Eric did this and he's like, why is the number so high? It must have been that he put it upside down.
Yeah.
So what I started doing is when I set it up, it has a code right here.
Yeah.
And I use the code when it has the 4 because I couldn't tell the difference in the light color.
Yeah.
So I just use the code to set it up.
Well, no, because it's the light. So on the shins, what it's like the light is on top, right? I must have put it upside down.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's what Eric did because he's like, why is my number so high? But I think it takes the inclination from the horizontal instead of the vertical,
Oh.
you know?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm gonna pull open this too. We can take a look at it. Like that's why that data tracing, that reference pattern is always there. Like, you
Mhm.
know, when it's processing, look at the reference pattern, make sure that the data is correct.
Yeah.
Because that'll be, yeah, that'll help you kind of understand. So let's go back up to the,
I wonder if the sensor did fall off at some point. Is the single limb hop like that as or the squat? Something like that.
a really low number. Yeah.
So I did put it upside down.
It's okay. It happens. You probably won't make that mistake again though, honestly.
No.
The learning curve. Okay, let's look at the single leg hop here then, because these numbers look really good. Valgus Ferris speed, I'm a little concerned about this. This might just be a capture also. Like, did we actually capture that information?
Mhm.
I'm pulling open your guys's. What was his name?
Elijah Putzies.
I'm gonna pull open his assessment and let's just look at this real quick. Okay, while that's loading, let's go through this like we did it right. Okay, so single leg hop, all this information is on their landing. Okay, so it's taken off of the second bell curve. Okay, so 25 out of 60 here, again, high Q angle, large amount of valgus. Okay, tibial inclination, that's where I want to go first. Did you jump and land with a bent knee or did you jump and land with a straight leg? Straight leg all the way. Okay, so these are the numbers within the 16.82 degrees, right? I want to see what you look like within 28 degrees. Okay, so what I usually say is like my first focus is always going to be like depth. Like I think of mobility, range of motion first, strength, and like stability, right? From a progression of rehab.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I'm going to look at is like, are you jumping and landing with a bent knee? No. So this is going to be the first thing that we work on in therapy. So the next time that you come in, I wouldn't be surprised if these numbers jump up because our main focus will be this. And then we'll stabilize you. Okay. I like to give that like kind of like free out of jail card for them for preparation of the next test. Like when we review the report, my biggest focus was tibial inclination. You did awesome on that. Right. That was our main goal there. Okay. So if we're going, then the next thing, valgus motion, 23 degrees of valgus. That's a lot of valgus here. Okay. Some of these metrics, I'm taking a look at this right now. We're on single leg hop on the right.
Yeah.
Rep 1. I don't know do you guys have this app open? Like his test open on this? Or can you see here?
Are you saying like the video?
I'm going to show you the data tracings really quickly.
Mm.
Can you see this?
Yeah. How do we get to those?
If you go back into the subject on the app, so go into Elijah.
And view?
Click on see more.
I don't see a C.
Oh, so if you go to, I'm sorry, if you go to subject, press view, and then press assessments at the top.
Oh.
Okay.
Detail?
So if you go into, yeah, so now you're on that detail of the single leg hop and you see the first rep. Is that where you guys are?
Yeah.
Or on the right
See
side.
how- on the right side. See how you didn't capture the actual jump on that one? Okay.
I'm almost thinking too, like the Wi-Fi signal was like orange the whole
The
time.
signal. And that's okay. If it's orange, that's fine. Like it's still capturing. Even if it's red, it's still capturing everything.
Got that.
It must have been the timing
Yeah,
of the start and stop because we didn't capture that.
got it. I wonder if there's like
Right.
like, you know.
And same thing with like rep number 8. That one looks a little funky.
Yeah.
And rep number 9.
Does it affect that he like kind of did like another jump to the side?
Yeah, like
He did like 2 jumps in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like how you want to play this is you want to capture like that entire motion, but you can see like on rep number 9, you don't capture that first load.
like fully. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to capture that entire result, but it's going to pick it up on just the second bell curve. So like the loading is the first bell curve, he jumps, and then landing is the second bell curve.
So it's skewed because I didn't get the whole counter movement. Got it.
And that's just like gonna come with practice. And
Yeah.
so we see, like if I share my screen again. Can you guys give me 2 seconds?
Yeah,
Someone
you're
text
good.
her, just give me 2 seconds.
You're good. I'm almost wondering, like, there was a lag when I pressed start, and like you could see like the little.
So yeah,
And
I
then-
say so I click it and then I like pause for a second and then I say go.
Yeah.
So it makes it-
Gun. I was jumping the gun.
I did that on a couple and I noticed that, so I had to go back. So that's why Eric's numbers are inflated.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
That guy's to see more.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good to know. I totally forgot about the positive and negative numbers.
No, I think my first patient canceled, so back into that. That's one of mine.
Yeah. I want to put it on like my own iPad and like mark it up so that I can take notes on my iPad, you know?
Is it bad to like send a report to ourselves?
That's what I don't think Elijah would care. But maybe we'll just do Eric's.
Do
or
that
something.
because when we like treat them like, hey, here's what I see right now. If it's okay with you, can I take this home and do more information?
Yeah, just ask him.
Yeah, give permission.
And that way we can like mark it up and then just send it to him. That way he doesn't.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. I just had to sign for something.
All good.
Okay, so when we're looking at those reps, like looking at first rep, that makes sense why we're scoring zeros on the varus valgus.
Mhm.
Rep number 5. 5 and 6. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting one. So you see how like on rep number 5, the second bell curve is small. So it's the first bell curve, and then the second bell curve on the blue is small.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the valgus motion is very small. So what he probably did here is he jumped and kicked his leg in the air. So like either drove his knee up or bent his knee back.
He kicked his he kicked his leg to the side.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the other way. So like if you see that and you're like, that data tracing doesn't seem right, like when you're doing the test, just redo that and tell him to, like, when he jumps, push through his toes. That kind of channels them to like keep their legs straight when they're jumping.
Okay.
Okay. Because if you think about like from like a data perspective, he jumps, he loads, he bends his knee. That's that first bell curve. As he jumps, and if he kicks his leg anywhere, that's that second knee bend. That's going to be the second bell curve. And then the third bell curve will be his landing.
Got it.
Okay. So just a learning curve on this, which is like why you're doing this. Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just keep going through this report interpretation. So he's not hitting, he's jumping and landing with a straight leg. Valgus motion is super high. We have about 4 minutes. Are you guys still good?
We're just making sure that Noah's patient canceled.
Okay.
Oh, you don't have a patient right now?
I just have an hour of doc, but I have 2 evals yesterday to write up.
Oh, you're chilling.
So I might
The wrong person.
take some time and then let you.
I'm chilling. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. You have to fill me in on the rest. Okay, yeah, we're good. Okay.
Okay. So then valgus is a lot of valgus, right? Pelvic lateral tilt. This is always going to be a positive number. Okay. I'm still on my right leg. I'm going to look at the trend here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 negatives. So the majority of the time he's positive. So what's that going to be?
Reverse Trendelenburg.
Yeah, retro Trendelenburg for sure. He's jumping and side bending. He's catching himself with his QL instead of his actual muscles, right?
Mhm.
Speed, this is going to be on the landing. Okay, so this is super high at a large magnitude of valgus. That's a very risky movement. Okay. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay, the one thing I want to go through for sure on is the left side pelvis. So left side pelvis, 31, this will always be positive, right? I go through the pelvic motion here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Typically negative. So I have to think my trend is negative, which is to the left. Now I'm standing on my left leg. Is that Trendelenburg or retro?
Retro.
Perfect. So that's what you need to think about with the pelvic lateral tilt. What's my trend? Which leg am I standing on? How does that move into his mechanics?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if he were my athlete and you actually and you had the ability to make the call, I probably wouldn't send him back, right?
Yeah.
But as you know, he made that call on his own, and sometimes we can't handle that. But this would be a great opportunity to talk to his parents about it and really focus in. But and also help you guys from a rehab standpoint. First thing that I would work on would be jumping and landing with a bent knee on his right side and then controlling him. So adding in some perturbations, maybe a band around his knee, pulling him into perturbations, maybe some box drops where he's stepping off and stabilizing.
I
All
think
that
the
good
most
stuff.
frustrating thing is I've been doing that with him for months. Like
And
months.
I think the thing with to understand from your perspective is sometimes these kids are just going to be motor morons.
I honestly think that is the case with
And they're
him.
growing too. He's
Yeah.
a 16-year-old male. So.
And I don't think he does anything at
100%.
home either.
Yeah, 100%. And that's to your point, he's a 16-year-old male, so he's probably going to be I always called them baby giraffes, needing
Yeah.
to understand their body, right? But I think from your perspective, then the most important piece would be education. This is what we're looking at. Put you in front of a mirror, focus on this, and clearly you're not doing anything at home. So you can humble this kid if he needs it really big time. But these numbers also help drive you where you need to focus on. So you've been doing a good job. You've been focusing on what you need to focus on, right? And now we just need to get the sensors placed on right and let's retest them. And no problem. And that happens.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Was this helpful?
This was super, super helpful.
Okay, good to hear. What other questions do you guys have? And I want to be respectful of your time.
I don't think I have anything.
How do you get the exercises to send to the patient?
Go into your app and go into that detailed page of, it's going to look like this.
Yep.
Scroll all the way down, press on the green button. It's going to
Yeah.
have a blue box or blue circle, corrective exercises. You can only pull it up on that page.
Got it.
I'm trying to work with web exercises. I just have not heard back from him at all. He's a very hard man to get a hold of.
Mm-hmm.
There's way too many exercises here. So, especially if they're scoring in the red, you'll have to go through and pick out what you want. You can also make your own prescriptions of exercises too.
Do you have a password and account to log into that, or?
You guys should have access to it. What does it say on your screen?
Said invalid, but we're trying it again. Oh, here we go.
This is under your account, so you should probably put your.
Sorry, it's loading.
You're good.
Yeah, hip abduction. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like what you guys can do is you can modify, progress, you can add exercises in with your own videos. But I'm trying to talk to web exercises and get these like, let's maybe send like 5 to 6 exercises instead of like 30.
Right.
Mhm. How do they know what stretches?
But this is probably because they don't get the depth.
Ah,
Yeah, it's based off of your result of your test.
this is so funny.
All right. Well, it's
Awesome.
interesting they're giving him dorsiflexion exercises. Well, I guess it makes sense
Because
because
tibial inclination, but that was my fault.
Okay. You're gonna make those mistakes, but I think like I said, you're gonna double check it every time. So
Yeah, you know what? Wouldn't the ankle lunge have pulled up?
yeah.
So I must have corrected it.
Because his ankle one was good. It was like a 9 out of 9. So that's why I was like, why are they giving him dorsiflexion
I think it
exercises?
fell off during the hop, and then I put it on correctly for the ankle
okay,
lunge.
wait, but let's just share this screen real quick. Here are your dorsiflexion numbers.
Oh, maybe it was wrong.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
still.
So that's.
Okay,
So you're
this
still
is
scoring
good.
in the green.
So I was like,
Yeah.
how's he getting green on
That's
that?
what I'm
I didn't expect
saying.
him to have a 9 out of 9.
Yeah,
on that.
yeah.
He doesn't
Okay.
strike me as somebody.
So Eric put it upside down.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
You'll just have to, yeah, Eric, just tell him the same thing. It
Yeah.
happens. Totally happens. But also, like, something to make note of is double check the low back calibration too,
Mhm.
because that calibrates from like your normal curve of your spine, but also in relation to the tibia sensors too. So if you double check the sensor placement on the shins and you're like, those look good, why are my numbers off? Look at the low back also.
Got it.
Okay.
Awesome, Maka. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for your time and your help with that.
Yeah, no problem. I'll send you guys this recording. I'll put it in a YouTube